Hello, everybody. Glad you're with us today and hope you're having a good day. I want to talk just for a very short time about imitations and being an imitator. As most of you know, I'm a big fan of the old Andy Griffith shows, the black and white. There's a character on there called Goober toward the end of it, and it's written for him in the show that he does some impressions of some old movie stars. He's terrible. And people just, if they don't even know who he's trying to imitate until he tells them. And it goes on and people roll their eyes and like, look, I've got things I need to do. So he really does a bad job of imitating. I think that a lot of times many Christians are terrible imitators of Christ. In Ephesians 5:1, Paul says, be imitators of God as dear children. And to be imitators of Christ, I would recommend, we don't have time now, but to read the rest of Ephesians 5 on up through verse 17. It has some pretty straightforward things to say about being what we should be and how we should act. In 1 Corinthians 11:1, Paul says, be imitators of me as I imitate Christ. That's a lot of confidence. I wish a lot more of us had the confidence to say, if you will do what I do, if you will live like I live, you'll be okay. I wished I could say that to my kids and my grandkids and other people at church, that you be like me and you'll be okay. We need to imitate Christ a whole lot better than we do. I think one way we can do that is to know the Scripture. And I know we can't be Bible scholars. Some of us, the memory's just not there to keep in our mind a lot of Scripture. But throughout the New Testament, Jesus continually answered questions and answered criticism with Scripture from the Old Law. When he was taken up into the wilderness and Satan tempted him, he continually, 3 times, I should say, he came back at Satan with Scripture. And there's other places through the New Testament, through the Gospels, that he answered people with Scripture. And it would be great if we could learn to do that. I think you can argue with me, but you can't argue with God. There's 2 things I would like to just bring up. One is the story of Zacchaeus. We all know the story of Zacchaeus. He was a short guy, a little guy, whatever. He climbed up in a tree because he was short enough he couldn't see over the rest of the people. Jesus came along and saw him and said, Zacchaeus, come down quickly, for I want to go to your house. And it says Zacchaeus came down out of the tree hurriedly and took Jesus to his house. When he did, a lot of people got to talking and said, this man has gone to eat with a sinner. And at that point it says Zacchaeus stood up and said, Lord, half of my goods I'll give to the poor. And if I have defrauded or cheated any man, I will restore it to him 4 times over. That's very Christ-like. That's imitating Christ. He repented of what he had been doing wrong, and he put others before himself. I would say that at that particular time, Zacchaeus was the biggest man around. One other example to be like Christ, and I'd like to read this if you want to turn to Matthew, the 25th chapter, and starting in the 34th verse. And we know this very well, but I just want to read it. Then the king will say to those on his right hand, come, you blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me. And then we know that the righteous say, well, Lord, when did we see you sick or thirsty or whatever? And then over in verse 40 it says, and the king will answer and say to them, assuredly I say to you, inasmuch as you did it to one of the least of these my brethren, you did it to me. Let's think about these things and try to be a whole lot better imitators. Let's don't be like Goober. Let's know that we're imitating Christ. Hope you have a good rest of the day and the rest of the week. Hope everybody continues to be well and that you're feeling good. And if it's possible and you can, we'll hope to see you Sunday.